Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. Sadly, over the past week, we lost one of the original actors for the Star Wars trilogy in Peter Mayhew, the actor who played Chewbacca in episodes 4, 5, and 6, and was also instrumental in training up the new actor for Chewbacca in the current Disney films. Now, I really wanted to pay tribute to Peter and his legacy. The thing is, I don't really ever know the guy. If you actually want to have some insight into what kind of person he was, you can go to like Mark Hamill's Twitter and see what he's posted about him. What I want to do is I want to talk about Chewbacca as a character, because apart from anything else, yes, I love X-Wing, I love talking about all the gameplay and stats and that kind of stuff, but I also love storytelling. Good storytelling, that is, and Star Wars is full of it. Chewbacca has always been one of my favourite characters. I think a lot of people sort of fob him off as like comic relief, but I actually think he has a lot of heart. He represents this really strong, pure viewpoint from the core group of characters. He's really raw, emotional, noble, has an affinity for small creatures, and he's pretty much the best example of a friend you want in a tight situation. I love the character, always have, so let's talk about Chewbacca in our favourite game, X-Wing, and have a look at all the different representations he's had in this game so far. Originally, in First Edition, in Wave 2, we got the release of the Millennium Falcon expansion pack, which gave us both a pilot and crew card for Chewbacca. The original pilot was Pilot Skill 5, what we used to have instead of Initiative. Used to range from 1 to 9 instead of 1 to 6. Had an EPT, which we now refer to as talents. His ability was, when you are dealt a face-up damage card, immediately flip it face down without resolving its ability. A very, very powerful ability, and actually something that caused Chewbacca to see meta play. In fact, in terms of meta play with the original Falcon, it was Han and Chewie in very, very different lists. Han was played mainly in a list called Fat Han, which was a really sort of, as you'd imagine, over-bloated version of a Han Solo build with a few little ships flying alongside him. Something that we have seen recently crop up in the second edition meta. Chewie flew in a very different list, a very successful list known as Chewiebo, which was flying both of the co-pilots for the kind of gunsling protagonist Dash and Han with Chewie and Lebo. Both were Pilot Skill 5 and both had a pilot ability that could ignore damage cards. Lebo read, when you are dealt a face-up damage card, draw one additional damage card. Choose one to resolve and discard the other. And Lebo would take the EPT determination. So he had two cracks at digging for a pilot trait damage card, which would help him ignore damage cards just like Chewbacca. Chewbacca had much better agency to do this, but that was in a pilot ability, and as I've always said in the channel, pilot abilities are generally more powerful than abilities on upgrade cards. And this was very much the beginnings of like the double pancake strategy, where you had two large base ships firing in 360 degrees, was kind of the predecessor to Dengaroo and other such lists, and was just really, really powerful. Didn't fly last, didn't do any shenanigans like that, just sort of parked itself, was really, really efficient, didn't take too much damage, and was able to dish out a lot of damage in return. Now, what didn't see a whole heap of meta play was the Chewbacca crew card. For 4 points on the Rebel Alliance only, when you are dealt a damage card, you may immediately discard that card and recover one shield, then discard this upgrade card. And this was quite interesting, and I noticed this cropping up in a lot of casual lists because it was the same cost as a shield upgrade, but was applicably in most situations just straight up better, because you could recover a shield and blank out whatever damage card you wanted. Just like integrated astromech, you could wait for the worst possible face-up damage card to come towards your ship and respond to it, making Chewbacca a very, very powerful option. However, in First Edition, there were a lot of powerful crew options, some even cheaper than 4 points. So unfortunately, that wasn't really boding well for Chewbacca, and he didn't end up seeing a whole heap of meta play. In fact, in terms of pilot and crew, one was very significant in terms of meta play, and the other was not. And moving into second edition, FFG put a lot of emphasis on trying to create a bit more equilibrium, making them a bit more fairer across the board. One more card we did see before the introduction of second edition was Chewbacca on the Resistance, which read, after a friendly ship range 1 to 3 is destroyed and has not fled the battlefield, you may perform an attack. A very, very stupid, fun, powerful ability. This is what I would describe, if I can borrow Mark Rosewater's psychographics for a second, the ultimate Timmy card. The ultimate sort of fringe, weird, alternate win-con strategy you can do in X-Wing. And this design remains on Chewbacca in the Resistance to this day, albeit a little bit altered. One of the more crazier applications was the use of this in Epic, where your Epic ship was allowed to just move into your friendly Z95s, pop them all, and allow Chewbacca to perform about roughly 1 billion attacks in one turn, which is actually really, really powerful against huge ships. I mean, every one of those attacks essentially cost you a 12-point Z95, so I don't know how this went in terms of consistency, but sure was powerful. In terms of the standard 100 points in first edition or 200 points in second edition, this is a little bit more difficult to pull off. And indeed, each one of your ships is far more valuable, so I don't really know about this seeing consistent meta play. It is worth pointing out that in second edition the design has had a bit of a boost. In fact, why don't we jump over to that now and talk about second edition with Chewbacca on the Resistance here. Also, yes, we have a really, really cool piece of art. The original Chewbacca came out before The Last Jedi, so this scene from The Last Jedi obviously was not known to FFG, so they couldn't use this art, but I'm so glad they updated this because this is just absolutely gorgeous. Chewie got an upgrade from PS5 to Initiative 4, which is actually slightly technically better. PS5 is like dead center when we're talking about pilot skill, and Initiative 4 is actually above center. The exact equivalence would be Initiative 3, although 4 is not unheard of. A lot of Initiative 5s from first edition went to Initiative 3 in second. After a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, you may perform an action, then you may perform a bonus attack. And this is really, really even somehow more spikier than the original. Now, the original version of Chewie could fire in 360 degrees, so it is actually important that we tack on the action in second edition because it means he's able to move the arc and get his shot. However, the upside on this, what makes it better situationally than the first edition Chewie, is the fact that if you already have a ship inside your firing arc, you can focus or target lock and improve the quality of your dice. And even if you don't, you can still boost as well, which may give you a shot on a different ship, but it also may alter the range and say get a ship into range 1 when you can then perform an attack. And because of the way the timing works, this means Chewbacca can potentially do this after your opponent's aces get a chance to shoot, which is just really, really nasty, spiky stuff. Now, the Resistance Falcon is really struggling in terms of meta play. Basically, all meta play on the Resistance is centered around the RZ-2 A-Wing and T-70 X-Wing. So maybe after another points change, this Chewbacca might see play. It is pretty difficult to justify that against the Initiative 6 Han, Initiative 5 Rey with a very, very powerful ability. And let's face it, after The Rise of Skywalker comes out, we're probably going to see a Lando pilot for this as well, so that may make the space a little difficult for Chewie. Nonetheless, this is the kind of ability where FFG are just a tad careless with their costing, can sort of spike out of control. Just bear in mind that we don't have Z95s to feed him anymore, so he might need another cheapy ship on the Resistance to get a bit of value. Moving back over to the Rebellion in second edition, we have another upgraded version of Chewbacca. Functions almost identically to the Rebellion Chewbacca from first edition, except he has one recurring charge. No longer does he just blank out all damage cards, it's only one a turn, which is a bit rough, but in terms of what FFG are doing in second edition, I can understand why this is the way it is. We don't want like hyper spiky cards. We don't want Chewbacca doing what he did in first edition. The sort of hyper efficient pancake strategy does lead to negative play experience where your opponent just feels like they really can't do much against such a hyper efficient turreted ship. And just bear in mind, guys, this is still excellent. the odds of Chewbacca getting multiple face-up cards per turn isn't exactly very high, so it's not like this has been completely powered down. It just doesn't mean you have the ultra feel-bads of like getting 2 crits against Chewbacca and he just goes face down, face down. That doesn't really feel good when you really work hard for those crits, so ultimately I do feel like this is a fairer application of Chewbacca. Now, moving over to the crew version on the Rebellion. At the start of the engagement phase, you may spend 2 charge to repair 1 face-up damage card. This Chewbacca has 2 charges and they recharge 1 per turn. Now, this is a new mechanic added into 2nd edition, meaning that basically whenever Chewbacca uses his ability, he's going to have to wait another couple of turns before he can do it again. And FFG were very clever with the design of Chewbacca in 2nd edition because they made sure that it worked well alongside Han. Now, it might not look on the face of it that Chewbacca works alongside the Han crew, or in this case the Han Gunner card, because that's how he's represented on the Rebellion. But what's really cool about both Chewbacca and Han is they work at the start of the engagement phase. Han Solo giving you an extra shot, and Chewbacca repairing a damage card, and that actually can be super relevant in damage cards that interact with you as you engage. So there is actually a bit of a flavour connection between these two friends on the Rebellion in 2nd edition. And this is also true of the new version of Chewbacca and Han Solo added to the Scum faction. Chewbacca on Scum reads, at the start of the end phase, you may spend 1 focus token to repair 1 of your face-up damage cards. And this pairs beautifully with the Han Gunner card. Now, this combo is a little bit sketchy at the moment because there was a bit of a broken combo with Han Solo and he had to be costed through the roof in order to avoid that from being played. I still maintain that he was pushed a little bit too far at 11 points, but that's a whole other conversation. Nevertheless, yes, the combo between these two are very, very obvious. Chewbacca can repair the ship if Han Solo nets you a focus token and you don't happen to use it. But there is one more version of Chewbacca added in 2nd edition, and that is his new crew on the Resistance. Because the Rebellion and Resistance is now split into 2 separate factions, it means that they get to double dip on the flavour of these characters. Chewbacca, set up, lose 1 charge. So he has a max of 2 but starts with 1. After a friendly ship at range 0 to 3 is dealt 1 damage card, recover a charge. While you perform an attack, you may spend 2 charge, change 1 hit to a critical. Very on point in terms of flavour, very similar to the Resistance pilot of Chewbacca. He becomes more aggressive when his friends get hit. Now, in terms of power level, this card isn't doing great right now, but I always implore all of you to pay attention to passive mods on attack. This is something you guys should not be sleeping on. It does not require you to fire inside the bullseye firing arc, works on turreted ships. This is something that could easily spike in power level if FFG make it cheap enough, and I think that's a real possibility given how unfavourable the Falcon is right now in terms of meta play. But when we look at all these different versions of Chewbacca, I do actually want to talk about flavour and about this character overall, because at the heart of all of these cards is a character that wants to protect his friends, who is loyal, emotional to a fault, aggressive and defensive. He protect, but he also attack. Don't ever forget that, guys. And as we move forward in the game of X-Wing, I do want to bring to light some of the things we may be expecting with this character in the future. Look, I think the most obvious one, FFG have already talked about adding extra pilots in a pilot pack. I think we absolutely should be looking at a Scum pilot for Chewbacca as well on the YT-1300. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. Look, I know he never flew the Falcon in the movie. Yeah, whatever. Of course he flew the Falcon with Han Solo while they were working for Jabba on various jobs. It's just crazy to think he wouldn't have. And also one more thing, which I've spoken about before, FFG do seem to be very resistant to have multiple versions of a character on the same faction represented in different upgrade slots, and I don't think this is something that is too complex for us players. I'm always on the lookout for complexity in this game. I'm always critical of FFG whenever they do that kind of stuff and sort of design cards that are not that sticky. I firmly believe that having a crew and a gunner of the same character on the same faction is not overly complex, and FFG should absolutely have a look at that with characters like Luke and Han, but absolutely with Chewie. We want a gunner version of Chewie. Again, I know he was never in the gun seat in the movies, but tell me he never flew shotgun with Han Solo. It just seems crazy to believe that. I mean, a Wookiee was represented in the original card of Gunner. You can just imagine Chewbacca filling this role perfectly. You can just imagine him in the gunner seat just, you know, mowing through sick fighters and TIE fighters going, and I think it would be a shame if this character was sort of never represented in that way. At the end of the day, yes, these are just pieces of cardboard that happen to have pictures of these characters that we like. But I think FFG with their Star Wars games, particularly with X-Wing, do a great job of representing this iconic character and other iconic characters in their game. And I think we just, you know, crave more of that. Yeah, it's cool to get like the side characters from bizarre EU stuff like Talonbane, Cobra and Kyle Katarn. But these are the characters that we really connect with. And we connect with them because of the people that made them. So rest in peace, Peter Mayhew. You did an absolutely stellar job with this character. Without this man, Wookiees as we know them would not exist. And I just want to send a huge thanks to both Peter and everyone that worked on this character creatively. Absolutely one of my favourite characters, and I'm sure the favourite character of a lot of you out there as well. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. In the meantime, do not forget to like and subscribe. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Reddit. Please consider supporting my Patreon. Thank you so much to all of my existing patrons. It really means a lot to support the channel, you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next video.